So we're jumping into some hovercraft tactica 101. And I feel like for this vlog anyway, the jumping in point, then we're going to look at some specific models in future upcoming vlogs. But I feel like hover vehicles are very, very interesting in Battletech because there is this idea. Battletech's an interesting narrative, an interesting time capsule, because it's like, here's what the future looked like in the 1980s and what we envisioned it being. And hovercrafts were apparently going to be like on the battlefield everywhere. They were just going to be the future of warfare. Forget tanks, forget anything else. It's all going to be these hovercraft zipping around. I think that was like the feeling in the 80s for a little bit in some areas. And Battletech took that and was like, we're going to utilize that. And in the narrative, the idea, hover vehicles are cheaper to manufacture. They're very, very fast. Maintenance is okay, and you're able to power them with both ICE engines or fusion engines. So really, they do occupy a very robust place in most worlds and most battles. They will have some capacity. So in pulling that in on the narrative, if you're building up combined arms, if you're looking to bulk up on some tanks, how do we begin to approach overall the hovercraft, the hover vehicles? Now, of course, like any tank class, there's going to be lighter ones that are just essentially like the Savannah Master, just take a lawnmower engine, put a blade on the back, inflate a balloon, and put a lawn chair on it with a medium laser. There you go. We'll cover it with some nice looking plastic and like molded body, but there's no armor on there. And that leads up to other massive, massive hover vehicles, which have multiple crews, multiple gun points that truly are tanks, and they all have different type of tactica. But I feel like the first starting point is this: speed. All of these have above average speed, and some of them are very, very fast. So we're going to capitalize that in two ways. The first is we're always going to try to be moving. We're always going to be moving because, of course, we have armor, and some have a lot of armor, some have a little armor, but speed, being able to throw down multiple hexes, just makes you harder to hit. And it also protects you when you get closer and closer, right? Battletech is a game of modifiers. So the closer that I get to the target, the easier it is for me to hit. Is it short range, medium range, long range? The easier it is for my opponent to hit me, the closer I get to them. So there's this trade-off. Ideally, the best trade-off is I'm getting close to you because I'm going to shoot at you. You can shoot back, but at least I'm shooting at you. A bad trade-off would be you get close to me, I can't shoot you, but you can shoot at me. So that modifier shrinks and shrinks and shrinks as a trade-off. The modifier that's constant is how many hexes have you moved? That's going to allow you, I can be one hex away. Well, I got to be careful because you might step on me or punch me. But I can be one or two hexes away, which means the modifier is short range. I've got nothing. You're going to be hitting me. But if I've moved, 3 to 4, 5 to 6, 7 or higher, 8 hexes, that's going to stack. That's going to protect me no matter what the range. Now, ideally, the best combo, of course, is to be far away and have those hex movements. So we're always looking to take advantage of that with the hovercraft, with the speed. But now this leads into, in my mind, and of course in the comments, my fellow mech commanders will also take over, this leads to kind of wanting to bulk up on two weapon systems. Really long-range weapon systems, LRMs, or short-range weapon systems, short-range missile packs for the spread, medium lasers, and being able to get really, really close. Other weapon systems that are mounted on there kind of give you something to do in between those two ranges. I say long range because if I have speed, what this means is I can hit you from long range 100% where you are weakest, because I have the combination of being able to really, really reach out and get into great positioning. I can pretty much, if we're playing on 1 or 2 hex maps, I can pretty much be in range in 1 or 2 turns. Probably 1 turn, definitely 2 turns to hit you with something. I can redeploy, I can shift in 2 turns to get an optimal firing position. Mounting long-range weapons with speed is really, really devastating. And what we often see with long-range missiles, extensive long-range missiles on vehicles, they tend to be slower. I mean, look at the LRM carrier. That's an extreme where it puts out 20 LRMs, but it's relatively slow. I mean, it's not the slowest thing, but it's slow. It's vulnerable to that. So once you get it into position, it's kind of more of a defensive thing. You're set. So you want to try and position it so your opponent can't bypass it, and you're at least going to get some shots. Hover takes that and tosses it out. I can redeploy. I can move everywhere. Now, the counter to that, I would say, and you guys know I love LRMs. You know I love long-range missiles. I love the idea of throwing down real-time hundreds and hundreds of rockets. But I also look and say, I don't want to say this standard Battletech game, but if you're playing on one or two hex maps, that's a relatively small battlefield. If I'm playing on one hex map, and I've played games on one hex map because it represents that conflict point where in the battle you're fighting. And I've played with some hovers on one hex map. The LRM speed isn't as potent or maybe not needed as much. My choice is short-range missiles, or like the Saladin Autocannon 20. Let's take two lawnmowers, put some blades on them, inflate some balloons underneath, put a lawn chair on it, and let's mount an Autocannon 20 right in the front. Like that's an option with the hover. The close range hover vehicles, this is where things get really, really deadly. Again, going back to the combination with the speed. So I move up turn 1, I move midfield, I get into position. Turn 2, turn 3, we engage, my mechs engage, your mechs engage, we're skirmishing. I've got the speed, I can be right behind you. And it can be an outflank where I'm moving up the left or the right side of the table, and then I circle back around to rear. Or it could just be like, I'm going to zip through your legs. I mean, I can't enter that hex, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just going to zip right by you, pass right by you, do a quick turn, and I'm getting rear armor. And that being close, yes, it puts me vulnerable because I'm close to you, but because I have the extreme speed, in a way it protects me, or at least it balances out. So I tend to look at hovers and say, I have a few LRM in my collection, but they tend to be the shorter punch ones. Again, autocannons, AC-20s, SRM packs, multiple medium lasers, looking to get really, really close, ideally not face-to-face, but side or rear armor, and just blast you. And if you're willing to commit with the hovers, what I find with the speed, you really can't stop me. You really can't stop me. I'll zip around things, I'll move around things, I'll get there. You can fire back at me, you can engage me, but it's very, very hard to prevent target acquisition or the correct, to prevent me from firing on certain points with those hovers. So for me, leading into these, and now we're going to jump in, part 2, part 3, look at a couple of these in my collection. That's kind of the entry point when I'm looking to build out my hover list. How do we break down the speed? How do we capitalize on that and really specialize and focus LRM and SRM, or long-range stuff, short-range stuff? It's probably a better description. And tactically, I believe the shorter-range punch has a lot more potency.